Welcome to The Center, your DC Sports Weekly Review. Here's your host, Ben Simon.
Welcome to The Center. It is February 4th, 2018, and on this episode, the Skins trade for a franchise QB, the Caps battle in lopsided affairs, and the Nats sign a free agent catcher. But first, the Washington Wizards. This week for the Wizards started out with the realization that we are going to be without John Wall for 6 to 8 weeks. He was dealing with another instance of soreness and swelling in his left knee, just like Peter Griffin. Wall flew to Cleveland on Monday to get a second opinion from the doctor who performed his original knee surgery in 2016, the official procedure called arthroscopic debridement. But let's be real. John Wall has not been the same this season. The counting stats are there, but he has spent 76% of the time on the court either standing still or walking, which is the largest such amount among all rotation players in the NBA. Originally, you would think that we're totally blown until our all-star point guard returns, but then you remember that we have two other max contract players that are more than able to carry the load, which leads us right into our recent 3-game slate. The first game was on Tuesday versus the Thunder, a rematch of last week when we lost at Oklahoma City. Satoransky was the main point guard, and the Wizards held Russell Westbrook to 13 points off 5 for 18 shooting, forcing him into 7 turnovers. The Wizards piled up 27 assists, and Westbrook wasn't happy that we slashed his team's 8-game winning streak. Final score 102-96. By the way, those City jerseys. Ooh, those are nice. I like those. Give me some more of that. All right, let's continue. Our second game was against the Toronto Drakes. The Toronto Raptors, who have the second best record in the East. Beal scored 25 of his 27 points in the second half. He was getting really splashy in the third quarter. The Wizards had 8 players score in double figures in their third straight win without John Wall. Final score 122-119. Third game was in Orlando, and it was an absolute beatdown. Most of our starters sat out the fourth quarter, and Satoransky had a career-high 18 points. You're going to see an assist on your screen. Wait for it. Oh, that is a beautiful pass, and you also got to watch Beal just break down Biyombo. Oops, see ya. Wizards had 35 assists, shot 54% from the field. Final score 115-98. Here are their standings after their games, with the Wizards snug in 4th place, a half game back of Cleveland. And by the way, Cleveland is really terrible right now. Their defense is atrocious. They just got throttled by Houston at home, 120-88. Chris Paul embarrassed them, and look at former Wizard Nene with the finish, and his defender doesn't even want to look at what happens after that, just turns his head. Ouch. This week, though, for the Wizards is a tough one with 4 games in 6 nights. Bottom line, the Wizards look to be better without an injured John Wall. Not just John Wall, an injured John Wall. That's an important distinction. As Bullets Forever noted, during the second and third games without Wall, the Wizards were averaging 340 passes per game, which is second in the NBA only to the 76ers. But let's not get carried away. It is extremely important to the Wizards' success in the postseason that we have John Wall back in full force at 100% on the basketball court. And keep in mind, folks, although this streak has been very nice, that we have a tough upcoming schedule, 4th hardest in the NBA, so this could get rough once this honeymoon phase wears off. The Washington Redskins made a huge trade for a new franchise quarterback as they received quarterback Alex Smith from the Kansas City Chiefs and gave him a brand new 4-year, $94 million contract with $71 million in guaranteed money in return for a 3rd-round pick and young defensive stud Kendall Fuller. This garnered a lot of debate on social media as fans were either excited or depressed about the trade, but everyone was perhaps happy to get past this whole debate about whether or not we're going to sign Kirk Cousins to a franchise tag, finally putting that to rest. But first, let's say a heartfelt RIP to Kirk Cousins, who was such a good person, an exciting yet frustrating player, and gave us several memorable moments. Wherever he goes, we wish him luck. Except, of course, if he goes to the Giants. Who's happy about the trade? Well, Alex Smith is happy. He got $71 million in guaranteed money. And how high is that? It's tops in the NFL, but probably only for a little while, as Cousins is set to receive much more than that. Smith is known for his conservative style of play, but is also a dual threat quarterback, one that can use the option effectively. He even scores touchdowns without having a fake running back to hand off to. That's pretty nice. Last year, his stats were much better than Cousins, although some would argue that he had a better team around him. For example, a much better offensive line and defense. Fuller, though, he was kind of a baller. He was rated as the top defensive player for the Redskins this year and ranked the number 6 cornerback in the NFL according to Pro Football Focus. No matter if you think this is a good trade or a bad one, the Redskins still aren't looking like a contender. I'm a subscriber of the idea that the game is won and lost in the trenches with your offensive and defensive line. You got to protect your quarterback and you got to pressure the other team's quarterback. Think about recent power teams like the Seahawks, Falcons, and Patriots and Eagles. The Redskins' O-line is still not playoff worthy, ranked in the bottom third by Football Outsiders. And even more alarming is that our defensive line is last in adjusted sack rate, according to Football Outsiders. Our defense by a yardage standpoint is also in the bottom third of the league. Bottom line, our team still has a lot of work to do. Breaking news! Supposedly the team is considering franchise tagging Cousins and then trading him, which we just received that information right now, and trusting that we're pretty confused and that we're trusting that the Redskins front office knows what they're doing. Last thing, it needs to be mentioned that Joe Jacoby did not make the Hall of Fame again. He will now only be reviewed as a senior candidate. None of us are happy about that. Let's continue. The Washington Capitals played 2 games this week with very different outcomes. First was the game at home versus Philadelphia. Philadelphia took an early 2-0 lead and everybody got a little bit nervous. Then Chandler Stevenson was the star. He had 2 goals to make it 2-2, and then Burakovsky, Oshie, and Smith-Pelly backed him up with goals. The Caps avoided what would have been their first 4-game losing streak at home since 2010, winning 5-3. The second game was at Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh came into this game with the best power play in the land, scoring at a rate of 26.7%. Discipline had to be priority number 1 for the Caps. But not only did Washington give up 4 power plays, 3 of the penalties came in the offensive zone. Malkin had 2 goals and 2 assists for the Penguins. Ovi had 2 goals and assists for Washington. Holtby was taken out in the 3rd period, and the Caps left Pittsburgh with their tails between their legs, 7-4 the final. So this is how the week started. Yay, we beat Philly. Oh. And this is how the week ended. Not good. Standings as of Saturday night. Caps in first place in the Metropolitan Division, with all teams in the division with more wins than losses. The upcoming schedule for the Caps includes 2 matchups with Columbus, and then we get to host Detroit at home. The Washington Nationals. They actually had a transaction this week, which has been a little bit of a misnomer in this free agency that has been so blisteringly cold. The Nats signed 34-year-old free agent catcher Miguel Montero on Thursday to a minor league contract. Montero, who most recently played for the Cubs and the Blue Jays, he only hit .216. Miguel does have a past with the Nationals, but not a positive one. Back in June of last year, the Nats stole 7 bases on Montero, with Trey Turner having 4 of those steals in just 3 innings, and then Montero ended up blaming Jake Arrieta for not holding the runners. That ended up being an infraction that cost Montero his job in Chicago, as they cut him right after following those comments. Nationals baseball blog confirms that the league average in throwing out guys is around 27%, and over the last 2 years, Montero has only thrown out about 10%. Montero does have a connection to the Nationals via former Cubs bench coach and new Nationals manager Dave Martinez. Montero is expected to fight for a backup spot behind the plate with Pedro Severino, and as of now, Matt Wieters is penciled in as the starter, and the debate continues over whether the Nationals should or will make a deal for an upgrade at the catcher position. Let's wrap it up. High school hoops. For this week's high school highlight, we go to Rockville, Maryland, where the undefeated RM Lady Rockets took on their crosstown rival, the Rockville Rams. And I'm telling you, these two schools are very close together, only about 7 minutes or so away. The pedigree of RM won out as they led 24-5 by the end of the first quarter, and star scorer Melanie Osborne poured in 18 points as RM won easily, 63-30. The Rockets have got to feel pretty giddy about that big victory against their rival. And you know what? That gif right there has me thinking about all those Kim Kardashian pictures that came out this week. Anyways, the undefeated Rockets should see their number 7 ranking in the Washington Post stay the same or go up as they look to be poised for another deep run. Another game that happened this week was the ladies of number 2 PVI holding off the number 1 team St. John's by a score of 61-56. Thank you for watching The Center. Please subscribe to our YouTube page if you enjoyed it. From the Center of DC Sports, we thank you. Have a wonderful week and good night.